Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, is patience a virtue for the Atlanta Braves?
And thank God list season is almost over because admittedly, if we see one more list that has somebody at the bottom, my goodness. Psh.
And last but not least, and for the culture, will you go to an Arena Football League game? That's all coming up next right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day One your first listen today. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And coming up in about 10 minutes, why are the Falcons always at the bottom of every list? We'll talk about that. But first, T, we got to talk about the Atlanta Braves taking the L last night. And again, Uncle Charlie wasn't too bad in comparison to Bryce Elder. But when you think about 4 earned runs given up, 5 2/3, still a little shaky, had some control issues, you got to start thinking that Alex Anthopoulos is looking at these last few starts. And you lost 4 consecutive games, T. And he's starting to think like, okay, I understand that Max Fried might be coming back. I understand that Jesse Chavez and Dylan Lee and A.J. Minter might be on the mend as well. But you got to start thinking about, all right, I can practice patience, but I might have a sense of urgency coming up on my behind right now.
Yeah, he's dialing that 313 area code and they are listening up in Detroit. I do know. Yes.
Going to the D, huh?
Yeah. Sources close to the sources in Detroit say phone calls are being made, but on all seriousness,
yes.
Last night was tough. And I know it might be one of those situations where, hey, you kind of get spoiled, but you do remember that even with the Tampa Bay Rays, when the Braves were heading into Tampa, gunning for them, gunning to make a statement, which they made. The Rays were also coming off of a 5-game losing streak themselves. So these streaks, they happen. It goes up and down 162 games. And I love what Brian Snicker said post-game. He said, hey, I trust these guys. I believe in them. It has nothing to do with effort. These things just kind of happen. This is still that same team that went on that tear. And I believe whether it's today at 12:20 or whether it is in the next couple games, they're going to bounce back. Here's the challenge, however. 2 things. Number one, every team that comes into Truist Park or every team that the Braves visit in this second half of the season are gunning for them. They do have, I don't care if they didn't win the World Series last year, they have the target on their backs. Let's just be honest. So everybody brings their A game for the Braves. And B, you still have to be careful in making sure you look at what the calendar says, because we are essentially 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. And you have to start making those calls because, like you said, we got the news this morning that Max Fried's rehab assignment has been bumped up from Rome to Gwinnett. So he'll be pitching at Norfolk later today, which may be a sign that next stop back into the majors. That said, it reminds you kind of the situations, that we've seen here and there, like, oh gosh, did they, and I don't want to say rush, but did they rush Michael Soroka back only to have to send him back down 2 games later? So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Max Fried. I think a lot of it will stem from the fact of if we see him go another couple scoreless innings like he did in his last 2 rehab starts, that might dictate a lot. But ultimately speaking, when you lose 5-3 and you're talking about Charlie Morton, who had 7 innings of scoreless ball, 2 starts ago, had a shaky outing or whatever you want to call it, an outing ago. And now this, where he's admitting, this is, again, Jarvis, a theme. We talked about this last night.
Yeah.
Players who literally are behind in the count, 2 strikeouts, and you're allowing them to get on base. So something is not quite right. To me, that's a mental lapse overall. And on the flip side, we go to the offense and it's like, okay, we're back to square one. 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. can't go back to living that life. But I agree with you. I think they can get out of that slump as well as some of those defensive miscues before they get out of the slump with a pitching staff, unless they bring some help.
Yeah, I'm with you because I'm not too concerned about the bats. Like those goals come and go, and everybody isn't going to slump. You know what I'm saying? Like I know they went over 5 last night, but you have to kind of look at it from a standpoint of somebody's going to get this thing going. Ronald Acuna's not going to be held down for long. Matt Olson's not going to be held down for long. Even Marcelo Zuna, he hit a home run. And we see our guy, Austin Riley, who we challenged, who listens to this show, he is continuing to surge like we expected him to in the second half of the season. So I think that, the pitching staff, the starting pitching is definitely a concern. And I think that, Alex will work his magic to try to at least have some conversations about what they're going on. But I think another thing that he needs to have some conversation about is this bullpen tee.
Yeah.
Like this is something that I'm starting to get to a point where I'm like, all right, you may have to make that call. We talked about how, hey, you don't necessarily have to make a phone call right now, but given with AJ Minter, like we mentioned earlier, and Jesse Chavez being out for a long period of time, all of those guys, and Dylan Lee as well, those are some of the names that, they are on the mend, they're on their way back, but we don't know what they're going to be when they come back. So there's also always going to be a ramp-up period. So I think right now, like, there may be a spicy move that he might be willing to make. T, do you have a spicy move for me that he should take a chance on?
Yeah, and I would say this before even going into the spicy move, going back to what you said as well, you do have to kind of put an eye on the bullpen. And the reason being, when you look at this game going into that 6th inning, right, that was kind of right around the time where Charlie Morton was done for the night. It was like 3-1, still within striking distance, right, were the Braves. But then in the 6th inning, that's when another run is tacked on by the D-backs. And then another run in the 8th inning. So that tells me that you might have some challenges in that middle relief and closer space that you can't help but kind of look at. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think that starting pitching is obviously the starting point. But if for some reason you can't get, your ideal starting pitcher. So for example, you can't get the guy that you want in and of course, some of this is fantasy, guys, so just work with us. But if you can't call up Detroit and you can't get like a Michael Lorenzen or an Eduardo Rodriguez, which Rodriguez is probably the more difficult one to get, you might have to go for somebody like an Alex Lang, just kind of see what they're talking about, because you kind of are in that space where you might not have a choice but to look at, okay, in addition to the struggles that we're having with starting pitchers, I think what you make a point about is this, and it's a great point. We're now essentially, Jarvis, for all intents and purposes, we're in August at the end of the day.
Yep.
And when you're in August at the end of the day, that means you're only about 2 months out from October. And you're still trying to position yourself, not just to be the number 1 seed in the National League, but should you get to the World Series, you want that to come to Atlanta. And those are kind of the things that you start thinking about when you start saying, okay, where do I need to go now? Do I need to go in the space of a closer, or do I need to go for a middle reliever, which is probably more middle relief than anything? So yeah, I mean, like I said, there are some pitchers out there that are viable, some that might be an outlier, like a Josh Hader. Good luck, wishful thinking. But ultimately speaking, it's probably going to be some bullpen arm that none of us necessarily had on our radar, but Alex Anthopoulos always has.
You know what? And I have a name, just kind of throw it out there. Took it to son. Like he was, I think it was July 14th when he faced the Braves, had a solid outing, only gave up 1 run. I think that you can he's a versatile guy. You can start him or you can use him in long relief because Lord knows the Braves have needed a lot of that as of late. So I think that's the type of move, and not necessarily, I'm not saying he's going to bring him in, but that's the type of move I feel like, hey, we know how to work with this guy. We know what we're getting with him. Hey, if you bring him in, and it's going to be cheap, you know what I'm saying? You're going to find value. He's one of those value guys. And I think that's what the type of deal that Alex Anthopoulos, or move, that he's definitely going to make. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And hopefully the Braves can get off this snide with Spencer Strider being on the mound tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hopefully, we can be talking about a win on tomorrow. For sure. Hey, guess what, guys? You know, we're talking about home run, talking about pitching and all that stuff. Guess what? I want to let you know that this episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is the #1 sportsbook in America. Guess what? If you're trying to make some bet, win some money, you can get 10 times your first bet amount and bonus bets up to $200. Yes, from FanDuel. Right. All you got to do is drop $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. I'm telling you guys, all you got to do is, hey, go with the Braves. You can bet on the home run. You can bet on the over-under, all that good stuff. They got it right there. And guess what? The app is safe, secure. It's super easy to use. And plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No more random texts or guys or looking at the red message to see if they actually responded to you and all that stuff. You got to worry about that. As soon as that bad boy cleared, they're going to cut the check. So there is no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So all you got to do is sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. LOCKEDON. FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball.
And hey, if you believe what the folks at Bleacher Report say, the over-under is 8.5 for the Falcons. Take that over to FanDuel if you would like. Under with 7 projected wins is where they are landing the Falcons yet again. And that's why we said earlier that once again, somehow the Falcons are landing at the bottom or darn near at the bottom. Now, granted, Bleacher Report didn't stack at 1-32, right? They broke theirs down in divisions. But I just, again, thought this was interesting that Bleacher would give the Falcons, and I want to go through each one of what the results were for the NFC South, but then also give the rationale for the Falcons and kind of let's talk about it from there. So like I said, Falcons over under 8.5, under with projected 7 projected wins. The Panthers over with 8 projected wins. The Saints under with 9 projected wins. And the Bucks under with 6 projected wins. So you're basically saying that you're taking, I almost feel like you're taking the entire field over the Falcons. But I mean, essentially, yeah.
That's fair.
And I'm trying to understand why.
You know what, T? Like,
make it make sense, Jarvis.
Right. Like, I'm gonna try to. Let me get my Bible out because I might have to go through some scripture on this one. But when you look at it as the division, right? I thought it was very interesting how they used the division and the week schedule to justify, those wins or justify the Panthers having more wins than the Falcons. But you didn't use that for the Falcons. Like, okay,
right.
Are they playing the same division? Like,
aren't they said to have had the easiest schedule in the league?
The easiest schedule.
Yeah.
Not one of the easiest schedule
actually, yes.
in the NFL.
Yes.
So, and I think that when you have that being the case, like, and here's my thing, right? Obviously, I have concerns about the Atlanta Falcons, right? Like, I will go to my grave saying, hey, who going to rush the passer? Who going to get there on 3rd and long? That's still up for grabs, right? Now you have, the difference is now between last year, you have some names who have been able to get to the quarterback in past years. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to be able to do that in 2023. But so that's my one question. I get it. I understand that part. But here's the biggest difference and the reason why I feel like the Falcons will have that over on the 8.5, and I'm projecting them to get like 9 wins. That's where I have them going, right? And I really feel like that can win you the division in 2023.
Yes.
It's the fact that looking at the season, going back and looking at some of the film from last year, there were so many missed opportunities by number 8. Like, because I'm no longer going to mention his name anymore because, like, it's not even no point. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Number 8. So being that number 8 is no longer on this roster, and I saw the relationship that Desmond Ridder had with 5 in just a small amount of time. He was able to establish a really good rapport, and if you bear those numbers out from a 4-game stretch to like a 16 to 17 game stretch, you're talking about that pick being worth it, with Drake London. So those are some of the things that I feel like him being able to establish a relationship with Drake last year, just in 4 games, And then now you have Kyle Pitts who's tweeting out saying, "Hey, I ain't gonna be on the pup list, Jarvis. I don't know what you talking about. I'm gonna be around. Yeah, all right, I hear you. Like, so yeah, we're looking forward to that. So I think he'll be able to establish a rapport with Kyle Pitts. So that's my biggest reason right there why I feel like they'll be over. And I just don't understand why people aren't looking at that, because I think Arthur Smith is a solid doggone play caller. I really do. So
Yeah.
I think he's going to put Desmond in situations where he's not going to necessarily have to prove himself every Sunday that he's a viable starter in the NFL and all that crap. So, yeah, I think they're going to lean on the run game. They're going to lean on play action, and they're going to try to figure out the way to stop folks on defense.
Yeah. So let's break this down as well in terms of each of the teams in the NFC South and the rationale that was given in this particular article about the over-under, starting with the Bucs, since their under was projected 6 wins. Here's the rationale for that, which I tend to agree with. It's essentially a rebuild following big changes in the trenches for this team. They don't have a long-term future quarterback, and this could be, we don't want to say a tank year, but this could be that year where they just say, hey, we already kind of know we can chalk this up to transition, right? So
Caleb Williams, tank for Caleb. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe one of those things.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I can certainly see why they would think that this team would be under with 6 projected wins. And also they're rebuilding the O-line. So no matter who you have under center or in the backfield, your O-line can't block anybody. So it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter who Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield is throwing to, whether they have Michael Evans or not, doesn't matter. You probably can't get the ball to him. So I can see the rationales for that because they are truly in rebuild mode. But again, I go back to when you juxtapose the rationale for those 6 projected wins versus the under with the 7 projected wins, it doesn't kind of add up, because the only thing you're saying is that the Falcons are the definition, their words, not ours, of mediocre in almost every single way. There isn't enough talent on either side of the ball for them to make a run. And I'm about to say something, but there's just enough to hang around 500 in a bad division. The jury's still also very much out on Desmond Ridder. Can I go to and use a pun intended? He says there isn't enough talent on either side of the ball to make a run. The word run is the critical piece of that statement.
There we go. Yes. Like, come on, like, see, that's why, a lot of times I really feel like I'm so glad this season is about to be over.
Yes.
Some real contact. We're about to see some pads put on, and we're really going to get our eyeballs on what this team is going to be in 23-3. Because, here's the thing. When you have a guy like Arthur Smith calling plays, and you're talking about that run piece, right? That pun intended. He's not going to put Desmond Ridder in a bad situation. On the way Desmond Ridder gets put in a bad situation if he puts himself in it, because
agreed,
Arthur Smith is going to call plays accordingly. Let's go back when Matt Ryan was the quarterback of the team. They had no chance in hell of running the football. They just didn't. They couldn't do it. That Mike Davis, whatever they had at running back at the spot right back then, they couldn't do it. And the offensive line couldn't block for him and none of that. They couldn't do anything. But they had a guy who was a former MVP quarterback. Now, granted, he was on the downside of his career, so they threw the ball a lot. That's what people seem to forget. So he's going to cater his offense to whoever's under the center. And I think that when people talk about they're going to run the ball 70% of the time. No, they're not. They're going to have some success. I really wholeheartedly believe that they're going to have some success running the football this year. And Arthur Smith is going to really be able to implement some guys because he has so many weapons on offense. And here's another thing, T. Everybody talking about how the Falcons need wide receivers. They got guys like Mac Hollins. They got guys like Scotty Miller. They got a guy at the HBCU, Alcorn State, Chris Black.
They have Jonnu Smith if you extend it to the pass catcher room.
Yeah, the 12 personnel. That is Arthur Smith's favorite formation. I'm telling you guys.
And he might give you a 13 if you
you might go in and throw it.
Might get a 13.
And
that's one of the things I was thinking as well, Jarvis. That's why I said pun intended, and I know you co-signed on that too, because it didn't ring. The rationale just didn't work for me, and nor does the rationale when I compare it, if you will, to what we saw with what this particular writer said about how he got the Panthers the Panthers, the unproven Panthers, over with 8 projected wins. So he says, wait, here's this. You have to applaud what they've done to support top pick Bryce Young. Okay, I'll give you that. But the defense is still meh. I don't know which defense he's looking at. And you have to assume there will be some growing pains with all of these new parts coming for Young. Panthers will take advantage of an easy schedule to up their win total marginally. Now, I think there are some holes in that as well, because let's be honest, actually, we saw their defense last year, and it's pretty much the same. And last I checked, Brown still gives people fits, right? So I was looking at the rationale for the Panthers' uptick in wins this season over last, 8 projected wins, and it still takes me back to, now, how do we get to 7 with the Falcons and 8 with the Panthers? Because again, Bryce Young, absolutely great pick. Probably going to be really solid, but just recall, folks, he's a rookie. There's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, it's going to be a learning curve. And I think that, you have to understand, people have to understand that, those 4 games was really crucial, I feel, in deciding to go with Ridder to be QB1 this year. And, because here's the thing, they've given Ridder all of the weapons that he can possibly want on offense, including bringing back the offensive line and that they had last year. Obviously there's going to be a little bit of a competition with Matthew Bergeron and Matt Hennessy, but regardless who's in that spot, I really feel like overall they're going to be they're going to continue to run the football in a good spot. So yeah, when you have all of these comparisons, contrasts, like even with the Saints, all right, I don't trust Dennis Allen and I'll never trust Derek Carr. You can't convince me on those people. So those names right there just don't be like, oh yeah, wins. No, I don't. And if you're telling yourself that winning comes to your mind when you think of Dennis Allen and Derek Carr, yeah, you need to go do some research, because I'm in a space where I really feel like Arthur Smith is gonna do some really good things, and I think this Bleacher Report guy, whoever wrote this doggone article, he need to go back and try again. So.
Yeah, and mission accomplished if the goal was for us to click on it and debate it.
Of course. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's the whole point, right?
Right. And then the rationale that he gave was a stout defense for the Saints. That's the rationale he gave for them with 9 wins. I still give Cam Jordan all the flowers. He's still probably going to be as good as he's ever been, maybe just a slight tick down. Demario Davis, yes, absolutely. Give him thumbs up as well. But honestly, Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus May, and Tyrann Mathieu, and love my homeboy, but let's just be honest. That secondary is getting older, and that secondary is often injured. So if that's where you're hanging your hat at who's on the defensive front and who's going to be the secondary, and you call that stout relative to the Falcons' new look secondary and their new look defensive front, and who's going to be there trying to get around the edge to rush. Again, I just find that to be a very shaky rationale at best. But hey, look, everydayers, if you guys disagree, and for some reason you guys agree and think that the Falcons indeed might hover around that under with projected wins at 7, but that they're right on the Panthers with 8, over under 9 with the Saints, and over 6 with the Bucks, you know what to do. Drop something in our comments section at YouTube, because hey, we love that you watch us every day, but we also want to hear from you every day. And of course, don't forget to download ATL Day Ones wherever you download your podcasts.
But T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different, T. So you know how the arena, when anything I see when it comes to the arena football, T, it kind of, it touches a nice little spot in my heart, because I feel like we got to talk about, got to give the arena football some love on this show. Just like you feel about the Dream, that's how I feel about the arena football. So they have announced their teams and their cities, where the 16 team leagues. Ooh, excuse me, I can't talk today. 16 locations that they will be playing, and there's some familiar cities: Orlando, Tallahassee. I just don't understand why they don't never want to put one in Atlanta. We don't got to be right in the city. No, how about Alpharetta or Roswell or something like that? Put some on the south side, College Park, like College Park arena football team. So, but yeah, they have announced their teams and they're going to get ready to get started in 2024. T. My question to you, and I probably know the answer to this, but I got to ask anyway, for your response. I did get responses to my questions that I know the answer to. Will you be attending a game in 2024 at Arena?
If I'm working it. Sure. Absolutely.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. If sis is on the sidelines, absolutely. Yeah. But if I got a mic in my hand, sure thing. If I'm talking to a coach or a player,
amen,
or an owner, I will be there.
Firm and believe in it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'll be in any city where they play. And it doesn't have to be Atlanta. I'm good. Yeah, that's my answer. And that's the one I'm sticking to. But also, it would be kind of fun if there was maybe a team, I wouldn't say in Atlanta, but I'd say maybe, I know Birmingham has been explored. What is it? The Birmingham Stallions, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think Mississippi, believe it or not, because really and we don't count the Jaguars because that's the AFC and that's the other side of Florida. Can't count, the Dolphins either. So really you're just kind of looking at the South, right? And if you take away the Titans and you kind of look at Memphis, Arkansas, that top part of Louisiana, if you will, and then you go into, Mississippi and maybe even Alabama, that's a whole area that's kind of South Alabama. That's a whole area that's kind of untapped. And to me, it kind of reminds me of all of the years that we spent and are still spending not having a Major League Baseball team in New Orleans and not having an NBA team for years, for decades, quite honestly. Indeed, so I just think it would be kind of cool, not so much that you would put it in a city that already has an established team, but maybe in a region that could use, I'll call it a developmental league or developmental team to be able to root for, in addition to either rooting for the Saints, Falcons, and I'll just throw right in there the Titans.
No doubt. And because we know Alabama has deep roots when it comes to football, right? And I think that, back when I played in the arena too, what I'm saying? They used to call it the Deuce. So yeah, I'm affectionately refer to it as that. Back when I played in the Deuce, they had a team in Birmingham and those crowds there, T, they used to be absolutely amazing. And I think that I'm going to try to figure out a way to get down to one because, prayerfully I'll be, sitting right there beside you or talking to you on the sidelines, doing games as well. Because the cool thing about arena is the fact that it is so family friendly. They have so many things going on during the games and my wife, she absolutely loves it when the Hawks have so much stuff going on in between the timeouts and stuff. And arena was very, very influential when it comes to doing arena stuff, and because it's a very family friendly environment. And I really think that I want to get my girls out and check out one of those games because I think it's going to be a cool experience because they seem very excited about getting it back. Now, one more thing before we get out of here, T. I know you got to talk about your girl, Rachel Robinson, the legendary wife, and just I can't even minimize by calling her just a wife, but just the matriarch of what Jackie Robinson was able to do.
Yes.
And accomplish, and the person who was his number one supporter. She celebrated her birthday, 101 years old. How about that?
I cannot believe it's just amazing. And like you said, she reminds me a lot of Coretta Scott King, where yes, her legacy started. Yes, her legacy started with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but then she paved the way all on her own, and she is an icon unto herself. I say the same thing about Rachel Robinson. Professor, a nurse, a leader in the civil rights movement, and the founder of Jackie Robinson Foundation. They've given out millions and millions of dollars over the years in scholarship money. And she's still been very, very outspoken over the years about her husband's legacy, which has been very important, very, very important, especially in Major League Baseball, where maybe there has been a dearth when it comes to Black players, if you will. So she's really been there. And I can remember even last year, there was a very touching moment when she turned 100, right? With Mookie Betts speaking to the crowd. And it was just a very emotional time for everybody that was there because that's how much she means to the game of baseball. So I just love that Can't believe she's still around at 101. I feel like we're blessed to even have her, although I've never had the good fortune to meet her, but still very blessed to have an icon like Rachel Robinson here. And yes, happy belated birthday to you.
Yes, happy birthday, Mrs. Robinson, excuse me. I ain't playing around like that. But yeah, people, like we mentioned earlier, we need the Braves to get a win. And obviously, if they get a win or lose, we will be talking about them tomorrow. So make sure you guys come back and check us out. And also, we appreciate y'all, our everydayers. The guy's been dropping those comments. I even think I got one from Slam T where he was talking about how the connection between Desmond Ridder and Drake London's going to be the 9 to 5 connection. I'm like,
I like it.
Hey, man, you might need to get a little T-shirt. I might have to steal that one from you, my brother. But yeah, we appreciate you guys, everydayers. And if you are everydayer and you haven't commented, go ahead and drop it in the comment box. Also, and if you are listening to us right now, go ahead and drop us a 5-star review. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And last but not least, before we get out of here, we got to do it, guys. Make sure that you both share love, show love, and most importantly, take T to the arena football game and spread love.